This list is purely based on my own personal opinion of factors I'll cover after this disclaimer. It's okay to disagree with me, and it's okay for me to disagree with you if you feel different. So before you jump me in the comments telling me that I'm wrong, feel free to get in touch. To do this, write your opinion on a piece of paper and pop it in my pigeonhole. That'll be any bin. Any bin at all that you see, pop it in there, and I'm sure it'll make its way to me. What is up, everybody? My name is Blob, and welcome to my tier list. This is something I put a poll up on the community tab for, and people voted very much in favour for me doing this, so here I am doing this, and I've found a really nice tier list. I'll put a link to it down in the description if you want to make your own variant and send it my way. I'd love to see your opinions on this, but I've made a few adjustments to it. Number one, I've got a tab for exhibit animals. I'm not going to be ranking any of these at all. I don't really care much for them. This is going to be purely for the habitat animals. I've added a row here as well for reworks needed. This is going to be for light and heavy rework. So if there's something I feel needs a massive rework, then I'll obviously add it sort of more toward the top of the list. But if it's something that needs a little tweak, I'll add it to the bottom end of the scale. But other than that, everything else is pretty self-explanatory. S will be top tier, A, B, C, and then working its way down. And here's the criteria that I'm going to be working for when I'm doing this whole thing as well. So this is going to be the criteria. The first one on the list is going to be the model and texture quality, plus any morph variations that the animal might have. So generally, the more morph variations they have, this is going to contribute to their points and ranking on this tier list. The next point is going to be the unique interactions and animations that they might have in the game. If they can use certain enrichment pieces that other animals can't, then again, this is going to give them a little bit of a leg up. And they also might have some really cool animations, like emus can do the dancing, for example, which is a really nice animation. That will give them points. And the uniqueness as well, general uniqueness. Things like the platypus are very, very unique to the game. You know, like there's nothing that's going to come along that's going to be even remotely close to as weird as a platypus. But then there are things like giraffes. We've only got the one variation of giraffe in the game, even though there are others they could add. But because it's the only one in the game, you know, it makes it quite a unique thing as well, which then means that you want to build for it because it is the only variation that you have. And lastly, the last point, it's not really criteria, but if I have or haven't used them, or have had a desire or not had a desire to use them, it's going to influence their position on this list as well. So for that reason, it's probably worth mentioning that the D tier, even though I'm placing animals in it, these animals can be taken with a large grain of salt, because I might build for them retrospectively after this tier list and then think, wow, these animals are amazing, and put them in the A tier. So without any further ado, let's jump into things. And this tier list is actually really nice because the borders around each of these portraits for the animals is corresponding to whether they are part of a DLC or the base game. So all the base game ones have got this white border on, and then we jump to these this first set of three, which is the Deluxe Edition ones, and then we've got the blue for the Arctic pack. Then we've got the South America pack, Australia pack, and it just continues on so that we know which pack that these animals are part of. This way, I think it gives us a really nice feel for whether any of the newer animals perhaps are up to the cut of some of the older animals, and vice versa. But it's worth noting that even some of these base game animals, I understand that they're very, very old compared to some of their newer counterparts. So comparing some of these models is obviously going to be a little bit unfair. So I'm going to be a little bit frugal about what I'm putting into the rework needed tab here, just for the sake of fairness. Obviously, I'm not expecting 4-year-old models to hold up to ones that they perhaps made only a couple of months ago. So without any further ado, let's jump on in with the first one. We've got the aardvark. I'll be honest, I don't really use the aardvark. I've not really used it an awful lot, so I feel like this one isn't really one I can comment on without being too harsh on it. So we'll put it in C for the sake of this video. Pretty much the same for the Cape Buffalo. I'll be honest, I'm much more preferable to the water buffalo, so I think the Cape Buffalo is sort of just fallen under the radar for me. And it's the same story with the black wildebeest as well. The black wildebeest I just don't like, so that's going to go straight into D tier along with the Cape Buffalo. I'll put the Cape Buffalo in C actually. African elephants, absolutely love these. Obviously they're a very popular zoo animal. I love the models on them. I love the sound effects of the elephants as well. So these ones are obviously going to sit up there very highly on this list, and I want to put A Obviously, I can change these around if needed, but I'm saving my S's for like the really special ones that I feel like I can't go without when I'm doing a zoo, really. One of those will be coming up pretty shortly. So, African painted dogs. Again, the problem is that obviously I've built a lot of zoos in temperate biomes and stuff like that, and desert biomes is something I've sort of strayed away from for the most part when playing this game. So, when I'm ranking things like the African painted dogs or the, I don't know, the ostriches and the warthogs, sable antelope, I feel like it's a bit hard to rank these because I've not really used them as much. I've not perhaps seen any of the animations. So again, this is what makes it's a personal playlist, or personal tier list, should I say. So I'm going to sling them into, I'll put them into B actually, because I really do like the canids in this game. Tortoises, I don't really have much to say about these ones. The giant aldabras, they're nice for like a small animal, so I'll put them in B as well. Plains bison. Oh, see, now this is obviously salamanders has covered this animal a few times in terms of like the size of it and stuff like that, and I don't know, I feel like the plains bison still holds a nice place in my heart. We had our Elkhorn Zoo a while back, and that had plains bison in it that was named, and something I liked quite a lot. But I actually am going to put it in A, I think. I really do like the plains bison quite a lot. Bactrian camel, though, I'm going to put it in D. I don't want to have to do it, but I'm going to put it in D. And the pure fact is that I think the fur shaders just aren't up to scratch as some of the other animals. They don't look as woolly and scraggly as they could do. And we know they can do it because we've seen them do it with things like the sloth bears. So this one sort of borders on D / maybe a minor rework needed. I don't know. It's very difficult to say. I'll put it in the rework one for now because I feel like it would just need like a fur shader update with the shaggy fur. And then we've got tapirs. God, I absolutely love tapirs, got to be said. And the babies are amazing as well. So I kind of want to put them in A. I love the noises that they make as well. It's definitely a B or an A for me. I do love the tapirs quite a lot. I'll put them in A for now. And then we'll see how we go. Bengal tigers. I love the tigers in this game. I do think Bengal tigers rate slightly higher than Siberian tigers for me. And I think it's going to be for the same reason as the camel being in the rework needed. Is that I feel like the fur could maybe do with a touch up on the Siberian tiger, where the Siberian tiger's obviously got longer fur than the fur shaders are obviously a lot more noticeable on this one, whereas the Bengal tiger is a shorter furred animal, so you don't really notice it as much. But I think the Bengal tiger just pips it over the Siberian tiger for me. Next up, we've got the Nyala. The Nyala's going in S tier. I think it's such a slept on animal, like really. I think some of the I'll be posting screenshots as I'm sort of going over this tier list as well, just to sort of show you what I'm talking about when I'm looking at some of these animals. But the Nyala is such a pretty animal. It's so slept on as a base game animal, especially as an ungulate, you know. And for that reason, I think the Bongo is going to go in S tier as well. Like, these two together are just stunning. Obviously, some of these animals as well have had changes made to them over time, where you've had things like deep diving introduced and other little characteristics. So the Bongos, I think, can have piebald variations, which is obviously very cool. Tigers have recently had new color additions added, so they can have cool patterns as well. But obviously tigers can now deep dive. That was something that was never part of the base game when it first came out. So some of these animals have had a lot of TLC love added to them with updates that have come out throughout the time with the game. Bonobos, I'm just putting them straight in D. I don't use bonobos. I've never used bonobos. I've never had an interest in using bonobos. I think them and the chimpanzee, wherever the chimpanzee is. The chimpanzee I'm going to put in rework because they need a soft rework. They probably need more of a rework than the camel, but not as much as something else that we're going to be obviously coming to very shortly as well. The orangutan. Now, I've seen a lot of split opinions on the orangutan. I really like the orangutan quite a lot. I'm glad that it's in the game. And I think they've done a really good job with the models on the males and the females. So it really does... I really do want to put them in like the A or B tier, especially with some of their enrichment items. You know, like there's the box where they poke the sticks in and stuff. Love that enrichment item for the orangutans as well. Really nice. So I do think I prefer the orangutans out of a lot of the monkeys and apes that are in the game already. Cheetahs. This is difficult because obviously I know some of these I use remasters for as well, so it's a bit of a shitter to have to rate these and put them in certain tiers when I'm not happy with the base game models enough to use a remaster for them. So I'm going to put it in C, but this is there are good remasters for this one as well. Pangolin, this is going to go into D because I don't really use it all that much. It probably is a good model, but I just think that compared to a lot of the other animals that are in the game, like its interest factor to pull me in just never really seems to be there, unfortunately. Warthogs and ostriches, I'm just going to pop them straight in there as well, just because I feel like they like fall in that bracket as well. And then this is probably going to be my first controversial one of the whole lot, and this is going to be the full motion black bear. That's going straight into S tier as well, because...
What? Bro, what are you talking about, man?
It's had some tough love, it's got to be said, over the time. Like, it was not the prettiest model to begin with when its mouth used to hang open all the time, but obviously that's something that's now been fixed with the game, and you can now get the golden variant of the full motion black bear. And if you ask me if I wanted to have the full motion black bear or the sun bear, I would pick the full motion black bear 10 times out of 10. I love it so much. I'm not overly keen on the sun bear, so that's going to rank way lower down on this tier list, but the full motion black bear is just... Oh, I've built 4 Habitat 4 already. I'm going to be building a new one as well when I come to it in the new zoo as well. Gemsbok. This one I feel like it would be a bit harsh to rank because this has actually held my interest sometimes. But at the same time, I was always waiting for something like a greater kudu to come into the game, and it's never really been the case. I think the closest we have to that is like an Adax. So the Gemsbok has always been something that potentially interests me, but it's never actually made it into any of my zoos, even though I'm pretty sure that if I ever do come to do an Africa zoo, it will definitely feature for sure. So maybe I should be factoring that into some of these opinions as well. Gharial. They're very cool, it's got to be said, but I think a lot of the base game lizards and reptiles are not particularly great. So that and the saltwater crocodile. The saltwater crocodile I actually think needs a bit of a rework. The textures are very, very blurry on it, and I don't know why. I don't know whether that's me, I don't know whether that's a setting I've got on in the game, but when I compare the saltwater crocodile compared to, say, the Komodo dragon, the difference is night and day. Absolutely night and day. It's criminal. So I think saltwaters actually need a bit of a rework, but the Gharial does need need some love as well, but not to the same extent as the saltwater crocodile. Galapagos tortoise. I think this is just going to go into the same as the Jaldabra or Galabra, whatever tortoise is called. Like, I just don't ever use them, and if I do, I would not really put an emphasis on their habitat if I was to do something for them. Giant pandas. Oh, I really love them. I kind of wish that they were a bit more silly as well. Obviously, whenever you see them in zoos, they're very very silly animals, and at the same time, I kind of wish that they could use the hammock item that the sun bear and clouded leopards could use, but for some reason they can't, which is very, very strange. So I'm going to put them in B tier. Very, very nice models, it has to be said. Absolutely love the models, but I feel like that there's more that they can do with them in terms of interaction. Very, very much so. So yeah, that's where I'll put them. Flamingos. They're very painful to work with in franchise because they freak out quite a lot. I think the last time I had a flamingo habitat, it was on perma perma protest watch because I was just constantly getting alerts that they were shy and freaking out. So I think I completely avoided them after that whole incident. So flamingos are going in D tier, unfortunately. I'm not overly keen on them. I kind of wish that we had I think it's an American flamingo, the very bright red pink ones, but these ones that we've got in the game at the moment don't really do it for me all that much. And then we've got the grizzly bear and the Himalayan bear. I'm gonna group these together because they pretty much fall under the same thing. I'll be honest, I can't really tell much of a difference between the two, so I think these are gonna go in D tier as well, in all honesty. Maybe even C tier, actually. I think that's a bit harsh, but I'll put them in C tier. I do like the bears. Obviously, there's talk of the new DLC and stuff like that, and people want a new DLC for the Americas, which could see us get the spectacle bear, which I think would be an amazing addition to the game. That would probably go straight into S tier for me if it's anything like the full motion black bear. So that's where these two will be sitting. Hippos. Hippos I've always wanted to build for, but I never have done. And their models are quite nice, you know, and they've obviously got the thing where they were pretty much the first animals that could deep dive unofficially. They could never officially deep dive. It wasn't called that. They would just sort of walk along the bottom of the water. So I want to say A or B, but I'm going to put A because I really like the hippos. And there will come a day where I build a hippo habitat, and it's probably going to be hippos and maybe like some sort of saltwater crocodile that share a habitat together at some point. I know that sounds like a bit stupid, but I think that that's something that could potentially work. The Indian elephant. It's cool. I think I do hold it on the same sort of level as the African plains elephant, and it's the distinction between the two is quite nice as well, but I don't think I've ever built for the Asian elephants. I probably should do it at some point. The Indian elephant, sorry, at some point. Peacocks. Oh, I adore them. They add so much flavour to a zoo. Obviously, these and the swans are just so nice for just... they're so different. You know, like a lot of these are just big animals that you'll put into habitats and then people will view them from afar. But obviously, with walkthrough exhibits and stuff like that, like the peacocks are so nice for that. And the sandbox with some of the things and settings that you can turn off in sandbox means that you can really get some cool effects going on with the peacock as well. Anyone that's followed my Paw series will know that I literally just have them roaming around freely in the grove where our guests can stay. Indian rhinoceros. Now, this is where it starts to get sentimental for me because this was the first ever animal that I built for in Planet Zoo, the Indian rhinoceros. So it holds a special place in my heart. But I always wanted these other types of rhinos, like the southern white rhino and the black rhinoceros. I really wanted those. So when they came out, I was absolutely over the moon. And it does unfortunately mean that this drops down a few places, I think. The thing I'm instantly picking up on in this tier list is how balanced it is in the middle of the park as well. Macaques. Macaques are going in A. I love macaques so much. They're going to be going in the Snowtop Mountain Reserve as well. At some point, again, these have had a lot of TLC over the years of the game coming out and stuff like that. They can bathe, which is obviously a new thing that they added when they added the capybaras into the game, so they can do that. And I feel like we need more smaller monkeys in the game, it has to be said. Obviously, most of the ones that are in the game at the moment are things like orangutans, and even medium-sized ones like gibbons and siamangs are in there as well. I wish we had more smaller ones like the macaques and your capuchin monkeys. Mandrills. These were the second animal I ever placed in Planet Zoo. And they're very cool. Like, they're good for franchises, got to be said. Like, they have a lot of appeal to them. The face markings mean that they're like really different as well. Again, I think it's an underrated animal in Planet Zoo for sure. So I want to put it in like A or B, to be totally honest with you. But We'll go with B. I really think it deserves to be there. Nile monitors. These are slightly better than the Gharials in terms of their models, so I'm going to put them into C. But I think, again, the harsh reality is a lot of these DLC lizards and reptiles that they brought out over time are just going to be like eclipsing them in every aspect because they just look so much better. A copy, that's going straight into D tier. I've never used it. I've never had an inclination to use it or an interest to use it. Zebra. I have used the zebra before and they are very pretty. I kind of want to say B tier for the zebras. I do like them a lot. Has to be said. Pronghorns I think are the same. I've used pronghorns before and they're very, very cool. Again, another animal that got a piebald update, so you can actually get piebald variations of these, which it's nice having these older animals go back and get a little bit of love to keep them sort of in line with the DLC animals. Red panda. Straight into A tier. There's absolutely no doubt about that. I've built so many red panda habitats over my time, but that's like my personal love of red pandas, but also how well the game does of representing red pandas and how they make them look. I kind of wish there was a little bit more variation in how they looked in game. Obviously, some of the ones that I've seen have had like more whiter faces than this, like without the orange around them. So I kind of wish that they'd maybe have added that, add some more variation. But I think that's the only thing that's potentially stopping them from leaping up to this elite S tier that we've got going on at the moment. But red pandas, top animals. Lemurs, I think lemurs are a C class. Both lemurs, the ring-tailed lemurs and the red ruff lemurs as well. I don't really use lemurs all that much. If I was to use an animal like this, I would probably pick a small. I'd rather use a macaque or a mandrill or something instead of one of these lemurs. The animations are cool, obviously, where they like bathe, where they sit down and they cross their legs and they like hold their arms out to the side. There are some very cool animations for these, it has to be said. But my preference is macaques and mandrills. The giraffe. I've seen a lot of people hate on these animals a lot, it has to be said, but I really like them. Like, for me, I feel like they are an A tier. I would love to see a new giraffe get added to the game, like a Maasai giraffe. I'd love that so much. So, yeah, they're an A tier for me. I really love them. I have had ideas, if I ever do a desert zoo, of something like a cool feeding area that I would do for the giraffes. But until that day ever comes, I'm brave enough to tackle that biome, then, yeah. Sable antelope, D tier. Never used them again. No inclination to use them. I think there are just like more interesting models and more interesting like options in that ungulates category. Snow leopards need a bit of a rework. I'm gonna say it. Their proportions are a little bit strange and how they look is a little bit strange. So for me, they need like a little bit of a rework and tweak in some respects. So it's a light rework, nothing too heavy. The saltwater crocodile just needs like texture updates, I think, more than anything else. The chimpanzee, I think, needs texture updates more than anything else, and the same with the camel with the shaggy fur. They just need a texture update at the end of the day. Hyenas are going to be a D tier as well for me. I just have never really had an inclination to use them. I think I'm even bordering on like rework again. Like, they don't look as amazing as a hyena potentially could. If they went around and did it again, they could probably do a way better job. That's not to say that they can't do a way better job with a lot of these animals, but I think that the biggest increase in quality would probably be seen with something like the hyena. What one's this? This is Springbok? Because this is the Thompson gazelle here. This is Springbok. The fact that I can't even remember what it's called means that it goes in D tier, to be quite frank with you. I would rather use the Thompson gazelle or some of the ones that came in with the Arid pack, like the Dharma gazelle. So unfortunately, I think that's going to go into D tier as well. But it's strange because, obviously, I'm not hating on ungulates. I have plenty of ungulates that are higher up the list. We have two ungulates sitting up in the S tier. You know, these two are absolutely phenomenal models. I love them so much. Oh, see, this is another one. I use a remaster mod for the wolves. So, for me, I feel like they would need a rework. In fact, they're going in the top of the rework. Because if they sorted out the faces of the wolves, they would be up here. Because the wolves over the time of this game have had so many nice additions to them. They've had the sniffing animations where they will go and smell things like flowers. They've had the howling, and where they'll all howl together and sing together. They've had a rework. They were part of the main focus when they originally did all of the different fur variations as well. The wolves saw so many new variations come when they did that update as well. But if they worked on the faces, they would catapult up into S tier. But for now, I think they do need a rework on the faces in particular. And lions, I'm never going to talk about these because I think I'll just end up exploding if I talk about why lions need a remaster, in all honesty. They're so off the cuff, it's unreal. When you look at the normal lion compared to the remaster, it just makes you see that there is a huge gap in the quality of what can be done with these animals. And then we've got gorillas. See, these are up there with the orangutans. I'm going to put them with the orangutans. I love both of these so much. The dimorphism between the males and the females. They've done such a good job of making the males look super grand and tanky. So I have to give them props for that. Super, super nice. Red deer. These are going in A tier. I absolutely love red deer. Again, another ungulate, even though you could argue it's not base game. It came out with an update for the 2nd anniversary of the game. I think the 1st anniversary animal was the lemur, if I remember rightly, the white and black lemur. But the red deer, I adore them so much. I'm pretty sure you can get like an albino version of them as well, which is just absolutely incredible. And then the collared peccary. This one leaves a bit of a sour taste in my mouth because this came out at literally the same time as the wild boar, and I'd sort of feel like they could have done something different for this as an anniversary animal. Again, the giraffe. We've only got one giraffe variation in the game. They could have added a new giraffe. You know, we're still only sitting at one otter. They could have added a sea otter or... Well, technically, we've got 2 otters, actually. My mistake. I did completely forgot about the giant otters because I hate them. But the collared peccary, I think, just... I don't know. I feel like they did do a dirty on the anniversary animal by having these in here. So for me, they're going to be a D because I've just got no interest in using them. And if I did, I would probably end up going with the wild boar over the collared peccary anyway. And then that is it for the base game analysis. This is currently where we sit. It's actually quite level pegging across the board. C tier is looking a little bit sparse potentially, but I'm not going to put stuff in there just for the sake of padding it out. And then we jump on to the Deluxe Edition animals. Komodo dragon is going straight into S tier. The Komodo dragon is the top 3 animal in this game. I'm doubling down on that. I'm saying it now. It's phenomenal. Obviously, it's a bit of a shame that how they've released it with the console edition, where if you didn't pre-order the game, that there's no way of getting this animal ever again, which is... It does feel like they've done console players a little bit dirty like that, because the Komodo is so good. Maybe the others two are a little bit more lacking in this as well, but I think the Komodo makes it worth it on its own, in all honesty. And then we've got the Pygmy Hippo. Pygmy Hippo is something I probably will build for at some point, but I'd rather build for the normal hippo than the Pygmy Hippo, so I'm going to put this down in C tier. And then we've got the Thompson Gazelle as well. I think that's going to be another C tier ungulate. I'd rather use things like the pronghorn and then the Ala and Bongo than this. And the Dharma Gazelle as well. The model just isn't quite up to scratch with its latter counterparts, unfortunately. Polar bear. Now, the polar bear would have been in D tier if I'd have been doing this on release of the Arctic pack, because the size requirements for this animal were absolutely insane. But obviously that's had a lot of attention paid to it now and a lot of care paid to it, and now they don't need anywhere near as much space. But God, they're very, very glorious animals indeed. I love the models a lot. There is a really cool remaster that sorts out the shape of the body, and you could all argue that they do need a bit of attention in terms of the shape of the body as well. But for the purposes of this, I'm going to put it in an A. I love them so much. And then the Arctic wolves. Arctic wolves are an S tier. This is what I'm talking about with the Timberwolf. If the Timberwolf had a face update, it would catapult next to the Arctic wolf, and they would be sharing this spot together. None would be better than the other. They would just be on equal pegging. The howling, the sniffing animations, the models, the fur variations and the fur textures, chef's kiss on the Arctic wolf, sorry. Dial sheep, never really used them all that much, so they're probably just going to slot straight into D for me. And then the reindeer are going to be a soft rework. The antlers are just not correct at all. Anyone that's actually seen an actual reindeer will know that the antlers come backwards effectively, and then they sort of like skew in and then go back in on themselves. These look more like elk antlers welded onto a reindeer's head, like some sort of Frankenstein's monster. So these need changing. I think the reindeers just are not up to scratch at all. Maybe if we get an elk, they can use the models for the antlers on this, on the elk. But apart from that, that's going to be a no-go for me. Llamas. See, some of these animals I just don't think I've ever built for. Again, very cool animal. There's a lot of cool variations with the... They've got quite a few colour variations as well. The spitting behaviour, that's something that I forgot about that they added for the llama. So that's kind of cool as well. And the models are kind of cool, but I think I'd rather have the alpacas in here because of the woolly texture of the alpacas. Just looks absolutely amazing. I will actually do the alpacas while I'm here as well. So I'll put the alpacas up in A and llamas in B. I think the alpacas just claim it because of the fact that they've got that really cool texture with the wool. But I do think that, again, these could be made to look a bit more shaggy. But I do like the llamas. They do stick a solid B tier. Capuchin monkeys. I do like them. Again, I wish we had more little monkeys like this. New World monkeys is something that's been talked about quite a lot when people talk about apes in this game or monkeys in this game. So I'd love to see more of those get added. But the capuchin monkeys do a good job of representing that very, very small group of animals as it stands. And then we've got the anteater. The anteater is an A. The anteater is an A. I absolutely adore the anteater. The fact that it can share with some really obscure animals as well is really, really nice. It can share with the maned wolf, which is a very obscure partnership. But when you look at things like what the diet of the maned wolf actually consists of, it makes a lot of sense. But I think these share a really good model. I've seen a lot of people say that they could maybe be a bit more shaggy around the legs, and to some extent I would agree. And the tails could be a bit more drooped down, similar to how a Bactrian camel's fur might be. But they're just so different. They're just so different and such an oddity in the game that they stand out in their own right. And then we've got the jaguar. I think the jaguar is a bit... Out of all the cats in the game, I think the jaguars are like on the shorter end of the spectrum. I'd much rather use an Ama leopard over a jaguar. Maybe if they ever do an African leopard, that would potentially be like an insane cat to use. The jaguars, I don't know, they feel like they've fallen a bit short for me personally. And again, it's another one I use a remaster for, so it must speak volumes for the model as it stands. I have to use a remaster for it. And then we jump into the Australia pack. I'm jumping straight to the koala because the koala needs a rework. The model's cool, but please don't let them sit on the ground as much. Frontier. This has been something that has been talked about and called upon so many times, and it's basically a meme at this point how bad it's gotten. So I just wish that there was a way that we could make it so that they stayed in the trees more without having to cheese traversable terrain, because it wouldn't function in franchise. In franchise, it just would not live up to what it should actually be like for a koala. So they do need a rework, I think, in my opinion. But for the first time, not for graphical reasons, more gameplay reasons. Red kangaroos. I feel like the red kangaroos are going to suffer on this list as well, because the fact that the quokkas, wallabies, and whatnot are a thing, which is a shame because they're really, really cool. So I think for that reason they're going to go in B, and then it means I can go back and we'll have a look at, where's the wallaby? The wallabies are an A tier, maybe even an S tier. I'm actually going to put them in S because I love the fur textures. I think on these are absolutely god tier. Absolutely god tier. And the same with the quokka. Like, I'll go back and do the quokka now as well. Where is it? The quokka can go straight in that category as well. Where is it? There. The quokka goes in there with it. The combination of these two, the fur texture on them and how the change in the color works and the models are just chef's kiss. Chef's kiss. This I think this represents some of Frontier's best work, in all honesty and truth. But then we've got the dingoes, and I don't rate the dingoes highly at all, it has to be said. I think they go straight into D, which is unfortunate to say the least. And then we do have something very interesting, the cassowary. The cassowary is an A, I think. The fact that they terrify me is what stops me from putting them in S. But the models are absolutely incredible, like the bone plating on their head, the eyes, the beak. You can get some really cool close-up screenshots of these guys. I definitely have some that I'll be showing over the course of this video for the cassowaries. But they're so good, again. Birds are something they've been talked about a lot in Planet Zoo, but I'm glad that when we have been getting birds, that they've been putting out some really good models for things like the cassowaries and the king penguins. When we oh, they're actually next up on the list. The king penguins are outstanding. I think the king penguins are an A or an S. They really are. I've taken so many pictures of penguins in my time, and again, they've been given some love more recently with the new variations, color variations, so that you can make your penguins look a little bit more different. So I think king penguins go into S, honestly. They're so good. And then we've got the seals. The grey seal is kind of cool. I kind of want to put it in B, but I kind of want to put it in C. They're about, it's a borderline. It's a low B, I think. Again, this was a time of the game where things were changing. Deep diving was slowly becoming a thing for a large amount of the base game animals, and grey seals helped fill that niche that wasn't being filled by anything else, because at the time we didn't have the Californian sea lions. So yeah, they're going in there. Oh, the giant otter, straight into D. I don't like it. I'm very much a cute otter person. Very much so. So when you look at something like the Asian small clawed otter, where is it? That one there. That's going straight into A tier, because I adore it so much. The only thing that slightly bothers me is that when they're in the water, they're very shiny. Very shiny. So if they fix that and they didn't look as shiny, I probably would rate them a little bit higher. But the disparity between the two is evident for me. The Asian small clawed otters are just cute and adorable, and these ones just belong in D tier, and they can sit there for the rest of eternity. Oh, the dwarf caiman. Oh, the dwarf caiman is going straight into S. The dwarf caiman, and the... I don't know actually if the spectacle caiman would make it in there as well. The spectacle caiman is very cool, but I think the spectacle caiman makes it into A rather than S. Because I like the markings on this. The markings on the lower jaw for the dwarf caiman. The fact that they're a smaller reptile as well, which means that they take up less space. So some of these animals I'm definitely giving points to, because when you end up with these small little patches that you don't know what to do with your zoo, then having some of these animals like the dwarf caiman, like the quokka, can really be helpful in terms of filling those little gaps. The red panda, are really good for filling those little gaps. The sun bear. Now this one is a point of contention for me because I don't really like the sun bear. I don't know. I don't really feel like the model is that good for them. But that could just be me. But at the same time, I like the fact that they can use the enrichment items. Like their enrichment items are very, very cool. And I do appreciate whenever we get more bears in the game. But I do think that there's something wrong with the model in my opinion. But I just can't put my finger on what it is. So they're going to reside in C tier. And then the clouded leopard I will stick into B tier. Very, very cool again. Frontier seem to have a way with lizards in this game and big cats. So that'll always strike a good chord with me. Proboscis monkey. Putting them in D. If there's a list of animals I'm probably never going to build for in this game, the proboscis monkey definitely sits on that list somewhere. For sure. There's probably a list of 5 animals that I'm never going to build for in Planet Zoo, and the proboscis monkey is one of those 5, unfortunately. Malayan tapir. I think I put this with the other tapir as well. Obviously, back when these two were accused of being like a copy, I would have rated this a lot lower. But now that they've gone back and they've done the remodel and the remaster, this is a testament to what I was saying about the wolf. If they went back and redid the wolf, it would catapult it up to the same level as this. And this, I want to be proof of that. This would have been in rework eventually at one point. But where they've gone back and they have reworked it, it catapults it up to next to the tapir, the Baird's tapir. It's just... The babies are amazing. They're different as well. I think that's always the thing that helps me categorize some of these animals quite a lot. Which is why the Babirusa, I think, goes into like a B as well. It's not just a pig. It's a pig with attitude. It's emo pig. It's got fight. Look at it. This is a pig that has seen some stuff with those things coming out of his head. You know, like, so I think that's definitely going to be an A, B tier. But I don't quite know which between the two I'd do. I think I'll put it in B tier. And then we've got the Binturong. The Binturong I absolutely love. I'm putting this in A tier. This was one of the animals that got a rework before the DLC was even released because it had so much backlash. But the Binturong is really nice. The model's really nice. And it can share with a huge amount of animals in this game. You can build an otter habitat with them. You can build a orangutan habitat with them. You could probably even put them in with something like the Indian elephants as well. But the Binturong is so versatile for things like mixed species habitats, and I feel like they're kind of underrated in some respects as well. I don't really see much content made regarding the Binturongs, so I'd love to see more done with the Binturongs as well. And the Dhole. The Dhole is another one that's had a rework. God, it feels like quite a lot of these Southeast Asia animals have had reworks. It's got to be said. Binturong before it even came out. The Malayan tapir more recently, and the Dhole as well was one that had a bit of a rework. But I'd be more inclined to use the Dhole compared to the dingo if I was to do like a small canid habitat. You know, I think the Dhole is up there in terms of the better end of models now compared to hyenas and stuff like that. Then we move on to the Africa pack. And I'm going to be honest, this pack is probably going to be the one that's going to blow the rest out of the water because I absolutely adore the meerkats. The meerkats go straight into A. I'm going to put all of them into A, I think. Because I think as a set of animals, they feel a lot of, like, meerkats are something that's a staple in zoos. So having them in here is very important in my opinion. The rhino was obviously a different variation to the Indian rhinoceros for those of us that didn't really like the Indian rhinoceros. So when the southern white rhinoceros came out, I was all over it. Absolutely love it. Excuse the bike in the background. African penguins, another penguin species. Who can complain? I would maybe have preferred a Humboldt penguin or something like that, but then obviously wouldn't have featured in an Africa pack. But pretty much the same thing. Absolutely love the African penguins, and the fennec foxes are just the most adorable things in the world, you know. And I think all four of these animals are just, I think if I was to rate the DLCs and put them in a tier list, the Africa pack would definitely be an S tier, because I just think that they added so many nice animals together. And then what was the exhibit animal? The dung beetle. Okay, maybe that's probably where it would fall a bit short for me. And then the North America pack. This is where it starts to get a bit spicy because I do like the beavers. The beavers, I think, are going to go in B tier. I do like them a lot. I think these suffer from the same issue as the otters, where when they're diving, they just seem to go very shiny for some reason, but that just could be the lighting in this game. The lighting can be very good, but also very bad at the same time sometimes. Moose are an A tier. You got to show the love to some ungulates every now and then, and the moose are just... Again, they were highly requested. When they brought them to the game, they've absolutely smashed it out of the park with these. The antlers are just so... They've got such a presence about them. They are literally like a crown. And then you've got the fact that they're just huge and majestic as well. Sea lions. I'm putting these in A, right? But not for the males. And I'm doing it for the females. Because the females... model is so nice. I would rather have a group of females, I think, without a male in there. The male is cool, but I think if I wanted a big sea lion type thing, I'd maybe end up looking for a walrus if that ever came to the game. But I love the streamlined look of the females, and I think they've done such a good job with those as well, so that definitely puts them in an A tier for me. Pumas, mountain lions, whatever you want to call them, they're an S tier. There's absolutely no way that these aren't going in. My time with paws has taught me one thing, and that is that my continued love and support of pumas and mountain lions is justified. They absolutely look incredible, along with like the Amur leopard. The Amur leopard, in fact, the Eurasia lynx. While we're here, we're going to grab the Eurasia lynx and put that in S tier as well, because these are probably the two best cat models in the game. And I think the Eurasia lynx is the sole reason why I've been pining for a Canadian lynx addition as well to the game. But obviously people are talking about a new world pack which could consist of South and North American animals. If there was an elk and a Canadian lynx in there, I would be set. I would be all over it. And then the American alligator, I think, is going to just consolidate what I've been saying about newer models of the newer models in the game. They just blow the rest of them out of the water. They're definitely up there on par with the dwarf caiman. I'll put them next to the dwarf caiman. These two just set the bar, set the standard for reptiles, lizards in the game, along with the Komodo dragon. These three here are just like the three wise men of lizards, reptiles in Planet Zoo. Prairie dogs. See, this is a difficult one because I want to put them in C. I'm not overly keen on the prairie dogs, it has to be said. I think that's something that comes from me personally. I think they require quite large groups to get on. And if I was to have like a small rodent-like animal in the game, I'd rather just build a meerkat habitat, because I feel like it's something that would be more commonly seen. And then you got the Arctic fox, and I don't want to do this, but I'm not sure I like their model. The blue morph as well is just a very strange thing. I'd much rather build for a red fox. The red fox models are like absolutely outstanding. Like, they're not quite S tier for me, but the red fox definitely is an A tier, whereas the Arctic fox is down here at a C for me. There's something about them that I can't quite put my finger on that just draws me away from them. You know, when I look at small, again, I think this is what I'm comparing it to. When I look at other small animals of the same type that I could be building for, I'd much rather build for the red fox than the Arctic fox, unfortunately. Alpine ibex, top 3 model. Komodo, ibex, probably, I don't know, because these don't have like that interesting of interactions. The Komodo dragons, they just look amazing, and that says enough. If they don't have much gameplay, but they have a lot, like really good models, that it propels them into a S. Whereas the ibex have an incredible model, and they can use the climbing mountain, which is an amazing enrichment piece. It's a shame that more animals can't use it, you know. Badgers, I think badgers are going to go in B. I've never really had too much of a urge to use them as well. they're cool. I've definitely used the badger before as like a filler animal when I was doing like a small green park type thing, but badgers never really interested me all that much. Fallow deer. I think I'd rather use red deer and moose than fallow deer. Actually, that's probably a bit harsh. I'll put fallow deer in B because I do think they probably are on level with pronghorn when I think about it, because the babies are cute, but the red deer babies are cuter with their little spots on. But fallows, I'd much rather have a red deer, I think, in my zoo, or a moose than a fallow deer if I was to go with like a big ungulate with horns. Capybaras. This is probably where the video gets a dislike, a D. I've never felt the need to build for capybaras. I never wanted capybaras in the game. When their pack was announced that they were in the Wetlands pack, I just wasn't interested at all. A lot of people on Reddit were obviously excited for them, but I've never been overly taken by them. See, the Nile Lechua again. I'm gonna put these with the pronghorn and the fallow deer. I think they feel a nice little niche in terms of our ungulates in the game. And the Nile Lechua just being a wetlands one, it's just a bit different from what we've got in terms of other ungulates, either being temperate or desert based. So having them as a wetlands one is very, very cool. The platypus. I think it goes in A. I think the platypus definitely goes in A. They're just odd. They're so different that it makes me want to use them. Obviously, I've never used them before. I wish I have built for them before. I've got an idea of a habitat that I would do for them if I ever built for them, but at the moment, I've just got no inclination to build an Australian zoo whatsoever, so it was a bit harsh to peg it down for that reason. The red crown crane is an S for me. It has to be said. I adore them so much. Again, they just pad out the space. If you've got a huge habitat with, say, Nile Lechua in, or red pandas, stick these in there with them, because it helps add a new dynamic. The red pandas can climb around on the trees and branches above, whereas your red crown cranes can sort of just wade around in the water if you build a big pond for them. Water buffalo are way better than Cape buffalo. I am much more preference to these, so as a result they end up being an A as well. We don't have many big bulky ungulates in the game really. You've obviously got like your bisons and your wisents, but I think these are just so different with the big horns that they bring to the party. Okay. Good lord. The Przewalski horses. Where do we put these now? These would have been an A for me once upon a time, but I think they've been pegged down because things now like the Somali wild ass and the donkey. The donkey, by the way, the American donkey from the Barnyard pack is an S tier. I love it so much. It's got cool variations. The textures on it are absolutely amazing. The noise effects for them are absolutely amazing. And then the Somali wild ass is like gonna go in A, I think, wherever it is, that one there. That's gonna go in A because it's cooler than a Przewalski horse, but it's not as cool as the American donkey from the pack. But I'd argue maybe it's not cooler than a zebra. I don't know. We'll move the zebra. We're gonna bring the zebra up. We're promoting the zebra to A tier along with the Somali wild ass. Siamangs. I think the problem is that gibbons are cooler. This is the big issue I have. So I'd rather put Siamangs in B and gibbons in A, because I think that's just how I personally feel about the situation with them. I love the calling, the howling. I love the noise effects of both of these animals. I just like the fact that the gibbons have got multiple colour variations, whereas the siamangs just come in this black colour. But siamangs are cool because they can obviously share with orangutans, I think, as well. So you can get some pretty cool mixed species habitats involving these two. Amur leopard is an A as well. Amur leopard is definitely an A. I think there is something that stops them from being an S tier, along with the puma and the lynx, but they're definitely an A tier cat for sure. Up here with the Bengal tiger. In fact, I argue that the Bengal tiger maybe shouldn't be in this tier. I think that's what we'll do. We'll move the Bengal tiger down, and then we'll move the Siberian tiger down as well, because I do think that the Amur leopard is cooler than the Bengal tiger, because there are some things that maybe need touching up with this model, but not as much as, say, the Siberian. So I'll demote both of those as well. The Scimitar horned oryx, D. They're cool with in terms of what they represent. They really are. They're cool in terms of what they represent. You know, they're an extinct in the wild animal. But I'd much rather build for a Gemsbok, which is kind of saying something, obviously, given that this is a base game animal and this is something that came in the conservation pack, which was way later down the line. Raccoons and skunks just don't really interest me all that much as well. I think they're both going to go in here as well. When they were announced, again, raccoons, people were up in arms about it. They were loving the fact that we were getting raccoons, and I just thought I would much rather build for the foxes. I think the foxes that were part of the Twilight pack were way cooler, and even the wombats. I think the wombats are amazing. The wombats go straight into A. They're adorable. They are a small animal to help fill those little gaps in your zoo. The models are spot on. I'd rather build for these. I'd rather build for these out of that whole pack. They just have more allure to me. Armadillos. Armadillos and porcupines. I'm going to rate these two together, and it might seem like a strange thing to do, but I wanted both these animals for the longest time. I wanted an armadillo in the game, and I wanted a porcupine, and they smashed it out the park. So these guys are going in S tier. The bristly noises that porcupines make as they're walking along, and just the texture of the shell on the armadillo is just absolutely amazing. I love it so much. So these two, there is a bit of bias for myself, but I think they've blown it out of the park with those two. The red-maned wolf. Ugh. I wish I liked them more than they did. There is definitely interest to potentially build for them one day, but not enough that I would place them any higher than B tier potentially. There's cool potential. Like I said, they can share with the anteater, and the anteater is definitely an A tier animal. So maybe when I build a habitat one day, these two will share a habitat together, and that will maybe drive them up the tier list at some point. The emu is very cool. Emu's an A. They have cool models. They've got the cool animations with the dancing. How can you not? Caracal. Caracals are like the red-maned wolf of timber wolves. There are lots of, like, I would rather use a lynx and a Arctic wolf than a red-maned wolf and a caracal, which is probably a very odd comparison to draw. So a lot of you are probably confused out there. But if I was looking at a medium-sized cat, I would go with one of these two. This just doesn't appeal to me as much. They're very cool with the little wisps on their ears, and the models are very cool. Like the wisps aren't just like solid, they actually do look like they have some like tuftiness to them. Oh, now these ones I don't know. I really don't know what to think about these striped hyenas. I liked them when they first came out, but over time I've just really lost interest with them. They're not as bad as these. I'm going to put these in the rework, actually, the normal hyenas, because I do feel like they're not up to scratch with the striped hyenas, but the striped hyenas just don't really do it for me either. Blue wildebeest, they're an S. They're an S. Again, I really want these three. I think there are 3 animals that I requested. There's one more animal that I'd love to see in the game, and that's a great akudu. but we have yet to see that animal as of yet in the game. So red river hogs. Red river hog actually goes in a... I'm not too fond of swinids in general, to be quite honest with you, but if I was to build for them, I would rather build for these or the boar. Where's the boar? Where did I put the boar again? Or did I not place the boar yet? No, I haven't placed the boar yet. I'll do the boar now as well. The boar and the red river hog probably go together. If I was to build for a swinid in the game, it would be for one of these two. I wouldn't even give a whiff of the warthog or the peccary. I would pick one of these two, I think. Or the babirusa if I was feeling like a bit exotic. But we're driving down to the end slowly. God, it's been a long old video. Good. Thank you so much if you stuck through this up to this point. The fossa. I think this is a D. Again, when this pack was announced and people saw that the fossa was coming, people were really loving the fact that it was coming to the game. But I just didn't really have much of an interest in it. And then you got the Asia water monitor. I think this might be an A. It's a good model. Up there with the alligator and the caiman, the texturing and stuff on it is really good. But I think I'd rather have something bulkier. Hence, I'd rather have the alligator or the Komodo dragon. Now, if I could pick the Komodo dragon on this, I'd rather have the Komodo dragon. So this slightly just misses out. In fact, this probably is like a top A tier animal, in honesty. Dromedary camels, they do everything right. So if I'm going to put them in B. I like the scale of them. I like the fact that they've got the cool piebald variations and they've got loads of different variations. If they fixed the remaster on this, if they did like a cool shaggy fur effect with the dromedary camel and fixed them, they would be sitting up here in B with the dromedary camel for sure. But at the moment, the Bactrian camel just isn't up to that same level. Sandcat faces are a bit strange, so I'm going to put them in C, in quite honesty. They're not my favourites. You know, if I was to build for a cat, I would definitely want to build for something a bit bigger. Or if we did have a smaller cat in the game, I would probably want a palace cat, more preferably to a sand cat. So that's just personal preference. Black rhino. This goes up here with the southern white rhino. These two are just amazing. I love rhinos so much. They're unique. They feel like a staple of a zoo. I don't think I've ever been to a zoo where they don't have some sort of white rhino or black rhino or something like that. That's an African rhino that is amazing. The Addax. The Addax. The Addax scratches an itch that I've been looking for. Like I say, I've always been looking for an ungulate in the game that had spiraled horns. And the Addax is the only thing we've got so far. A greater kudu would definitely be an S tier, I think, if they did one of those. And the Addax would remain in A tier. But at the moment, something spiraled. Even like a black buck. But then I think a black buck would probably end up being in an A tier as well. The greater kudu, I think the scale and the grandeur of it would just mean that I would put it straight into S tier. And then they would go into A tier, I think. Dharma gazelle. These are like a pronghorn. I think these three sit along about level pegging with each other. The Nile Lechwa, Dharma gazelle, and the pronghorn and the fallow. I think they're all like their own respective they're all their own respective biomes level, if you know what I mean. Obviously, if I was building for a temperate zoo, I'd probably do like the fallow deer. If I was building a more tropical one, it would be the Nile Lechwa. If I was building in a desert, it would obviously be the Dharma gazelle. So I've got an option for every biome here if I was to go for that. But then I've maybe got the option of the Addax as well if I wanted to go with something a little bit bigger. The kiwis. The kiwis are amazing and cute, but they're still a B tier for me. The models are really, really nice, has to be said. But in terms of flightless birds, I think I'd rather go with a penguin or a red crown crane, or the cassowary. Tasmanian devils are a D tier. Tasmanian devils, fossers, raccoons. They're like DLC hype animals that I just never really got behind. Whenever I looked at these packs, so when the Tasmanian devil got announced in that pack, I was like, whatever. I would rather have the fairy penguins. The fairy penguins, again, are an S. People are probably going to be having a go at me about that, but the fairy penguins are like an animal that I was requesting for the longest time, along with the blue wildebeest, the porcupine, and the armadillo. These four are just like my... If I had created a pack at the start of Planet Zoo when it came out, asking for 4 animals, this probably would be the 4 animals that I would have asked for. But again, you've got different variations. You've got like piebald ones, and you can have... I don't think they're actually called piebald. I think they have like a different name as well. But the fairy penguins have got different fur variations and pattern variations. And if you don't want to be building a big habitat for the king penguin, I feel like this little penguins are a really good backup substitute for that. The Wysink. These guys are going up there with the plains bison. These two sit alongside each other with the water buffalo. They're just big ungulates, big, powerful. The models are really cool in comparison to each other. I'm quite biased, and I like the two of them combined, the plains bison and the bison. The wolverine. Now, before I started my new zoo, these would sit in the D tier. They were a hype animal. I didn't really understand the hype toward them. I was like, meh, you know, like when you look at what else is in this pack, you've got the swans. The swans are going straight into S tier. I'm going to warn you right now, the swans are going in S tier. But the wolverine was a lower tier animal for me. But now that I've placed them in, and I've had that experience of seeing what they look like in the game and seeing how they interact with climate and stuff, they're definitely going to go up to A. Which might feel a bit unfair. So it's probably worth mentioning that this D tier, where I've never built for the animals before and have had no inclination to build for them before, there probably will come a day where I will build for them and I'll go, do you know what, the fossils are actually really cool, and that will shoot up the tiers. So I think there is a little bit of bias in here in my class system. Swans, S tier, probably they probably round off the top 3 models in the game for me. The ibex, the Komodo dragon, and the swans, first, second, and third. Don't ask me to put them on a podium between the 3 of them, because I'm just not going to do it. That's like asking me which testicle I prefer. I love them both. And then we've got the takin. The takin is... So the takin is going to go in the new zoo at some point, but I have a feeling that at the moment I just don't have much of a clue about it. So I'm going to preemptively put it in B, with the idea that if it's good, it can move up to A, and if I don't like it, it can move down to C. But I've seen people build for takins before. Their models look really good. They feel that niche between tiny ungulate and big ungulate as well that I think is like maybe missing, that is a bit different to say like a Adax or a fallow deer or something like that. Sloth bear. What? I'd rather build for a Formosan black bear. They're going in D. I'm sorry, people will definitely like the sloth bear and they like the fur textures and stuff like that. I'll put it in C actually, just because I don't want people to turn up at my house with pitchforks and torches. So the Saiga. The Saiga's cool, but I just don't have any inclination to build for it. I think the cool factor of its big ass nose is going to put it up to C tier for sure. So that's definitely where that's going to reside. And then we've got the final pack. Oh god, it's been a long video. Oh, I can't believe this. The chicken. Chicken's an S tier. The chicken is an S tier, and so is the sheep. The sheep is also an S tier. These two, now that I think about it, this pack actually houses the most animals from a pack, but it was an animal pack, so it's kind of cheating. But when I look across this, like some of these DLCs definitely haven't had animals from them. Like I could place the meerkats in S tier maybe, just because of how needed they were for a zoo. But I think I'll keep them in A tier for now. But it's weird how like some of these DLCs have got multiple animals, whereas some of them don't have any at all. So like the grassland animal pack has got 2, the barnyard animal pack's got 3. The aquatic pack has got 2. The North American pack has got 2 as well. Alpine goats. Oh, I would rather build for the ibex, but I will put them in A because I do like the models. But speaking of models that I wasn't overly keen on, the Tamworth was a big letdown. So much so that I would put it in D. I would rather have us had a pot-bellied, like a Vietnamese pot-bellied pig. Or something like that. Tamworths, when you compare all the others that we had, so the chickens have got cool fur variations, or feather variations, I should say. The donkey has got really cool variations. The sheep's don't have variations, but the texture quality makes up for it so much so. But the Tamworths just they feel like they were a bit of a letdown in this pack in general. And then we got the Highland cattle. I'm going to put them in B tier. I do agree with people. They could look more shaggier and they could look a lot more fluffy. But I think what they have got as a base to work with is really nice for the Highland cow. Maybe you could argue we could have had some different cows in there, but I think out of all the cows, I'm glad that they went with something a little bit more different and went with the Highland cattle rather than just like your normal dairy cow, potentially, if you know what I mean. But that's it. No more animals we have done. So this is our tier list. I will slowly pan my way down. I don't think that I don't think there's anything here that I am overly kicking myself about in terms of their placement. I think everyone here justifies their place in each tier, apart from the D tier. The D tier, again, if I built for some of these animals potentially one day, I'd probably get a different sense of appreciation for them, you know. Maybe I'd build a Tasmanian habitat or a fossa habitat and then be like, wow, these are really cool and unique, and they shoot up the tier list. So I suppose D tier is the only one that you could maybe put a massive grain of salt next to it. The rework ones, I'm not changing my opinion on these. I'm not budging. They definitely need it. But again, it's mainly base game animals, which is to be expected. You know, some of these models are well, these models are 4.5 years old, so it's to be expected that some of these will be outclassed by ones that have been later released down the line. But having ones like the koala in here, I don't really feel like it's acceptable. You know, like, they know that they're tree-dwelling animals, but for some reason they've put them as a habitat animal and made them walk along the ground. This is kind of why I'm glad that the sloth was made a walk-through habitat animal, because it means that they can actually stick to the idea that they reside in trees and they hang around an awful lot. Sloths don't spend any time on the ground. They only come down to the ground to do a number 2. But for some reason, koalas spend most of their time on the ground. So it's strange, very strange. And the antlers on the reindeer just need addressing. They're just completely wrong. I've talked about it earlier in the video and shown pictures of what they should look like. So, but that's it. That is my tier list. Again, I would love to see what your tier lists are. If you want to send them my way, feel free to do so. You can do so maybe on Twitter. Twitter feels like a good place to do so. And there's always a link for that down in the description. But thank you for watching. Peace out. I love you all. Bye-bye. Bye-bye.